Everyone's here today. I'm excited. I'll introduce myself. Again, Shawn Hill. I'm a partner at a fund called Moderne Ventures. And we've been in the prop tech space since about 2008. So we started our fund in a really interesting time as well. It's definitely been interesting, lots of lessons learned. We look at about 1,000 companies a year, have hundreds of conversations. We've got some really great founders today. I'm just here to lead and to navigate and to help you understand really what it takes to grow and scale a startup business. From an audience perspective, we will be running through a few questions that I'll ask today. You'll see in the top, in the corners of your screen, you'll have chat and Q&A. Chat is for how you guys can talk together as audience and attendee members. In Q&A, if you send questions, we're gonna have some time at the end and be happy to ask them the questions to our panelists. So without ado, we'll get started. Go ahead, Adrian, please introduce yourself.
Great, thank you, Shawn. So my name is Adrian Bartha, co-founder of a company called eCompliance, based in Toronto, Canada. And the problem that we're solving is helping people get home safely to their families at the end of every day who work in hazardous industries. Construction is the largest industry that we serve. And we built our company after I was working in a company, in a renewable power company that experienced a workplace fatality about 10 years ago. So that got me into it.
Great, Ben?
Hey, I'm Ben Blumer, co-founder and CEO of a company called ShapeMeasure. We're based out of Vancouver. The problem we're solving is really a talent shortage in construction. And so this leads to slow and low quality and expensive flooring installations. And so to solve this, we offer a service where our technician will create a scan of the construction site, upload that to the ShapeMeasure cloud, and then materials automatically cut to the as-built conditions. So this includes things like working around warped drywall or warped subfloors.
Great, thank you. Jimmy?
Thanks, Shawn. So hi, everyone. My name is Jimmy Plante. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of BIM1. So basically, BIM1 has two business units. We have a BIM consulting business unit where we help the industry to achieve greater productivity with their BIM project. So we are serving all the industry across Canada. And we have a second business unit called BIMtrack. BIMtrack is a communication platform for BIM coordination. So basically, you can set up your project within your day-to-day BIM software and centralize all the communication, issue, task into a centralized hub. You know that the industry still use SMS, email, phone to raise issue during a project, but it's very hard to fix this issue. So we fix that with BIMtrack. Maybe a little bit about myself. I'm a software engineer. I started my career at Can-Am Group in 2008, and this was my role at Can-Am Group to develop tools and technology to connect, to optimize the BIM workflow, the BIM technology they are using. So this is where I met Carl, my current partner. And in 2013, we started the company as a BIM consultant company, but with the idea to build the software and scale the software. And this is what happened. Today, we are 85 employees based in Quebec and Montreal, and also in Vancouver. So this is it.
Great, William.
All right, so nice to meet you, everyone. So my name is William. I'm the CEO of Mechasys. So what we do at Mechasys, we help contractors that performs layout on their construction sites. So layout is the process just before installing the construction materials. You need to know where your materials will be installed. So we help right now the wall and ceiling industry to position their steel studs on their project. So how we do that is we've developed a product that we call the FrameR. The FrameR is a laser projector that displays your construction plans in real scale on a job site, and you can adapt your plans in real time to make sure that it fits the environment. And as long as we adapt those plans, we generate the as-built drawings, and you can communicate that with your project managers.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so you can see lots of different solutions here to solve some industry problems. What as a VC investor doing this for a long time, I always like to ask founders sort of a couple of questions. Like, why did you start it? Were you in the industry? Well, it's crazy, right? So like you're gonna have to eat ramen noodles and sleep on the couch and do all those other things and like have everybody stressed out, right? So in order to do this, it's a certain type of personality that gets you to do this. So William, we'll just start with you again. I think you're the sort of the youngest company here out of everyone else. So you want to say like, what stage are you, and sort of why did you start and get into this crazy thing?
Yeah, so it is a crazy thing, definitely. This is right. So currently the stage we're at is we're having the minimum viable product that we're actually piloting on our projects, mostly in the region of Montreal. So we're gonna perform projects. We've performed projects already in hospital projects and apartment condominium, and we have large university project that will start soon as well in December. So that's going to be quite exciting. And to answer your question, Shawn, I think there's two answers to why you actually build this company. I think there's the personal answer and the industry answer. So the industry is really, I believe, to make a difference in our space, which is mostly surveying and layout. The market has been dominated by companies that are there for sometimes hundreds of years, 200 years, and things are not changing. So we want to see change in the industry, and I think for that you need to have a bunch of young guys that are really creative and that can perform highly technical work. And on the other aspect, on personal aspect, then definitely there's many things. But I think that we're just crazy, to be honest. And I think this is what makes it really interesting. So it is definitely a complicated thing, probably one of the most complicated thing I've done in my life, but it's fun. So this is why we do it.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, I think you're on the opposite side of that spectrum, right? So you've been around since 2014. You've got almost 100 employees. Like, walk us through sort of where you started and why you built this thing. And
yeah, so on my side, I started a few business before BIM1, even when I was working at Can-Am Group. So I have this. I always had this entrepreneurship spirit in me. But in 2013, when I was finishing my MBA, I saw this opportunity around BIM technology and BIM processes. I was working for Can-Am Group as a software engineer, and for the last 7 years, I was developing tools around BIM smart 3D models. So I saw this opportunity to bring services and technology to the industry and to solve a real issue and to be more efficient on construction project. So this is when I asked Carl if you want to to be the BIM expert in our team. I was the software engineer. So together we start the business, and rapidly we got this big contract in Quebec City, the extension of Quebec City Airport. So we start working there, and like 1 year after that, they asked us to optimize their BIM coordination workflow. And at this moment, we did some research on the market, but we didn't find the good tools and the good technology to solve their issue. So we decided to hire 2 software developers and start BIMtrack from scratch. And at that point, we iterate during a year, and 1 year after that, we launched BIMtrack. And BIMtrack is a cloud-based, web-based technology. So when we launched it, we got few sales in UK, Australia, France, very in the first few months. So we knew that we were on something really. We were fixing a pain and fixing an issue in the market. So at this moment, we decide to go raise money to really push the growth and grow faster. So this is my journey since 2013.
yeah, so luck or skill, Jimmy?
I think both.
Yeah.
I think there's many things, when you start a business and you have success, there's many things. Yes, there's the timing, the idea, but also the team. And I will repeat it today, but the team and the people around you, it's the strongest element you can have in the business. So you can have the biggest idea, you can have the everything, but if you don't have the team to execute the vision you have, you will fail. So to have a good team around you, and but timing, execution, team, it's all element that make you successful.
Okay, I'll put that up to skill then. So
Yeah.
Adrian too, talk about a little bit. You're about the same size as Jimmy. You hit sort of double digit. When companies start to hit 10 million in revenue, you become a real company, right? That's sort of, you hit $1 million, and when you hit 10 million, there's probably another celebration and all of that. A couple of things, especially when you have, such a big compliance piece to yours, you probably have to have experts in a bunch of different things. Like, how did you get the team started early? How did that work? And how did you get I understand the need for compliance in all these spaces. Like, I think that the need is served, but why you and why your team at that time?
Yeah, it was actually a little unconventional. We didn't start with a lot of experts or on compliance, to be honest. We started with a lot of questions, to be honest, and how can we help organizations do safety better? And when there was a very tragic workplace fatality on a site for a project I was on the developer side, it really helped me rethink, well, if the status quo in the industry is that people are getting hurt or they're getting killed, we can do better than that. And this was at a time when, 8-9 years ago, where new phones were coming out, new model cars. The world's supposed to get better every year, right? That's kind of what they teach you growing up. So I thought when it comes to safety, we can do better. But in the early days, we actually started with minimal viable product. We got an app out there back in 2013. We got lots of people trying to use it, and we asked them lots of questions. Right. We would show up, in person. I'd call them up or show up in person at their site and talk to them and get their perspectives on it. So interestingly enough, we didn't start with the strong expertise. We kind of came at it the other way and said, if we're going to do things differently, maybe we should just ask questions and more questions from the very beginning. And thankfully, we have some amazing customers early on and companies we work with, and they really guided us, to be honest.
Yeah, I think, the voice of the customer, everyone sort of says it in that. Ben, can you talk about sort of how do you learn fast as a startup entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it speaks to what Adrian is saying. It's listening to your customers. On top of that, though, I would add that the best way to get your customers to tell you what they want is to give them something, give them anything at all, and they'll very quickly tell you why you're stupid and what you're doing wrong. And so for us to put that in practical terms, we launched one service, and immediately we discovered that there's this big obstacle in the way for everybody in the industry, including the service we wanted to offer. And that inspired us to roll out a second service, which has been growing insanely over the last 6 months.
Yeah. Can everyone show how many times they pivoted since the original idea? Do you guys have enough fingers on your hands to do that? So how many times your customers told you something and you had to go the different way? So yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I can tell you, from an investor perspective, the first idea, and you guys know, the first idea is not the idea that you get to, right? What you think is going to happen is not where you are today, Jimmy. I'm sure you could say that over the last, 8 years. How many times have you had to go, from services to consulting to other things? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So we have pivoted a lot since the beginning, but what we did, and this is exactly, I know that some PCs or investors don't like to have a service and software. They want you to be only software, or if your services, they don't like that. But I really believe in the synergy between both business units, and this is how we really understand the market right now. So at the very early stage of BIMtrack, service was very critical for us because we were serving, all the industry. We were on the Quebec City Airport, but also on the Quebec, the city of Quebec, and big owners here in Quebec. So we learned a lot from those customers, and when we learn from them, we just bring back, their pain, and we are fixing that with our software team, and we iterate like that a lot. So I really think that to be very near and listen the market, listen to your client it's critical to have to find a real product market fit that you need.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to add there?
I think I have a second. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You can go, Ben. You can go.
Yeah, I wanted to add that I really do think that adding a service to your technology is a strong move. When you're performing a service, you start to figure out what can be better about your technology and your actual product offering. in a way that, throwing it over the fence and then hoping that a GC will give you a specific technical insight into your product just won't do the same thing.
Yeah, pivot is actually really important. This is how we forge this company, which is Mechasys. So at the beginning, on our side, we were not doing laser projector at all. At the beginning, we were doing prefabricated walls in aluminum. Totally different. And then we went to a job site with a potential customer, and we explained him how his job site would be better with our product, which was not the right case. And I felt that the situation was kind of weird. And at the end, I asked him, what is your biggest problem? You don't seem to be really enjoying what we present to you. I said, William, by respect, I didn't want it to tell you, but I don't want your product. What I want is not to assemble my walls faster. What I want is to know where they will be. So then we went back to the office and said, oh my God, this is something pretty good here. This is the voice of the customer. This is where we made a major pivot of the company in terms of technology. That was back in 2018. And then we've developed prototypes, and this is really where we move to the direction where we're going today. So that was a pretty exciting pivot.
Yeah, that's a great story. And from the VC, make sure that service business is high margin. So I'll just throw that in. So services are great. Just make sure you can make money on them, right? So that's interesting to hear that. I mean, I think pivots are important as a startup founder for you to be focused on what the problem that you're doing. Adrian, how do you size the problem, right? Because I think a lot of times you can see I may be solving a really niche problem, and that's a product, not a company, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you sort of, I always say take the plane up a bit. You're solving this really niche problem, and I know it sounds really painful to your customer, but is that a product problem, or is that, how do you build a company on top of sort of a pain problem?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, in our case, the original problem we thought we were solving was a smaller one, which was how do we make safety managers more effective at their job? But we knew that if we solved that problem well, we could actually help the company reduce injuries. But we had to open it up a bit. And I think one thing that one person challenged us a lot, and they said to us, well, you have to ask yourself, why does solving your problem really matter? What's the worst that could happen if this problem is not solved? Come on, really? And so I think that challenging of us helped us really think bigger in terms of what are we really solving here. And I think there's almost a difference between, we're all trying to grow, we're trying to scale sales and all this sort of stuff. But we had to pivot our team's thinking from being, hey, what's the product we're selling, to what's the problem we're solving, and let's problem solve with our clients better. And if we have the right product that solves their problem, great, we'll sell it to them. But if we don't, we won't. And so it was a very nuanced shift in thinking, but that approach really did help us build out a bigger product or better product that solved bigger problems that really mattered. And we also had to realize that there were some companies in our market that didn't value the problem that we were solving. And we were okay with that. And we just assumed that one day the market will grow and those people will hopefully catch on one day. We don't have to capture the entire market right now. So that was another realization we had.
Yeah. One of the CEO, I used to work for DocuSign before, and he used to say, look, let's create a category. If you create a category, then you're automatically the category leader. So, that was one of the things I learned. Anyone else have any input on that side?
Yeah, I think I would just repeat my point about getting out there and trying something. Sort of put that in concrete terms. We started offering one service, installing pre-cut flooring for stairs, which is a massive pain point for flooring installers. And that is definitely a niche market. When you're talking about a VC-backed company and you're saying, our TAM is $500 million a year, people get a little, you're on the edge of uncomfortable.
Yeah, we want to hear B's, that's for sure. So how do you get to a B, right? I mean, that's.
Yeah.
But doing that service gave us a very good insight. Now we know what percentage of an install people are willing to pay for in order to reduce the time spent on the job site. Yeah. And we know the conversion rates for that. And so now all of a sudden we know we have a very good idea when we launch our flat lay flooring service. So that's to say floors as opposed to stairs. we now have a very good idea of what percentage of that TAM you can actually capture with a service like ours. And it's in the Bs.
Oh, right. Cool. So just a question, Ben, I'll stay with you because you told me an interesting note about, sort of launch during COVID and, 6X, during this time. Like, let's talk about scale for a little bit. How do you think about it? Sounds like you're doing it pretty well. Like, what are the obstacles to scale your business?
So I think, the obstacles always present anew. It's kind of interesting, when we launched, like anybody, as soon as you launch your MVP, you find problems that are wrong with it and are going to prevent scale. You solve those problems. And then, when you're going from $500 a month to $2,000 a month and you think you're on top of it, and then you go to $4,000 a month and all of a sudden your $2,000 a month system doesn't work anymore. And then you go to $8,000 a month and then you go to $20,000 a month. But the big thing for us is that, collectively within this space, within this type of service we're offering, we're getting a very good idea, of what those challenges look like. So, our solution that worked from, 500 to 1,000 was different, but then the next solution worked from, 1 to 5,000. And then the next system worked from 5 to 15. So every time, our scalability or our systems for scaling are getting better and better and better, to the point where, I believe that by the time we scale to a system that works for, $100,000 or $500,000, we're going to be set to scale into the millions or the billions.
Yeah.
Jimmy, anything to add? To get your business to where it is. If you could go back to younger Jimmy, and you don't have too many gray hairs, so it must have been easy. So, what you told 2013 Jimmy about scaling? Like, what was the biggest obstacle you had there?
Yeah. So I think obstacle depend of the phase you are. I really feel that we are at phase 3, I can say. So phase 1, from 1 to 10 employee, finding your product market fit, iterate on your product, and then from 10 to 25 employee, you are your the first 2 director, and you start delegating, few tasks, product and sales, and so depending on of the phase where you are, you have different obstacles. So today, really to create the structure to have this massive growth for the next 5 years. At 85, 100 employee, I think you need strong VP in place. You need strong direction in place also. So I think one of the biggest obstacle when you grow like that, and we grow from 1 to 85 employee in the last 6 years. So it's people that it's hard to hire the good people, but when you do it, it's very strong and you can grow faster after that. But we, as a founder, you need to do not underestimate the time you need to take to talk with people and create relationship with your employees and hiring and all that stuff, because it takes a lot of time, to hire. Like this year, we are at 35 hire this year, so it's almost 1 per week. We need to work on our onboarding process, on our hiring process. So, scaling a business, when you have the good product, you have the business model that is viable, and you have all the team in place. Is just to scale, scale the people, So I think this is one of the biggest challenge we have as a company, is to hire the good people and put them in the good place. And
Yeah, well, let's continue on that theme. I like that. We talked a little bit earlier. Adrian, you want to talk about, how do you get to a team now in this environment? Jimmy, everyone's talked about team early on. Like, how do you do it in this environment where you can't necessarily maybe meet someone, but there's some advantages that you can hire across the country or across the world? Like, how has your organization, looked at hiring in these times?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not going to lie, we're still figuring a lot of it out. I mean, part of it is making the people on our team currently as successful as they can be in this environment. And the other part is recruiting and onboarding and making people successful when they join the organization. And I think what it's done, it's really forced us to put all of our approach to recruiting and onboarding and really tighten it up a lot. and be very specific about the profile of people that we think will be successful. And on the other side of it, making sure that we really do our part to make people successful within our organization and be part of our culture, and contribute to our culture when they join us. So we're still figuring a lot of it out. We've hired a lot this year, but so far it's I think people have surprised me in the sense that they're quite resilient. And I think if I have any concerns in the long run, it's more of 6 months from now, will people be burnt out a little bit in this type of environment and with pressures at home and so on. So I think one of the things we've been doing is just really staying in closer touch with people, even giving people a good old fashioned phone call once in a while, like just for no reason, like just like, hey, how are you? Because we can't replicate the office the same way. Yeah. Like if we're on Zoom calls and stuff all day, it's all great, but we're trying to bring that informal part back into our culture and experimenting with that a little bit right now.
Yeah, I like how you say, "Oh, people are burned out from Zoom 6 months from now." So I'll be in the one like right now, like right. So yeah, I can't imagine when it would be 6 months from now. William, we talked a little bit about culture and hiring. Why don't you give us some insight as to what you're doing? I thought you had an interesting way to engage people.
Yeah, so we try to be creative here because with COVID, nothing is the same as before, as Adrian said. Like it's hard to have this sense of like when you are near to the coffee machine and you chit chat with the people in your team, you cannot do that anymore. So you need to be more creative. So this is a really good challenge. So first, we've hired a couple. We haven't hired 35 person this year yet, but we established a structure to do hirings totally virtual, and I think this is an essential, especially in 2020 with the COVID. But you need to have this sense of touch with your employees that you really care, even if you don't see them. So just as we discussed before this panel, so what we've done for Halloween is we sent beers to the people, and beers for the people that don't drink, well, it's juice at their home with a like an old letter inviting them to a virtual escape game. So you need to be really creative to find ways how to interact with your team. And I think if you have your team covering your back, then you can ask them to do extra hours when there's a sprint that needs to be finished or whatever, and they will do it. And this is really the teamwork that is important at the end.
Have any of you opened yourself up to talent that's not in your area, the talent that's global? Have any of you guys just said this is going to be the new normal and we're okay afterwards with having someone in a different country somewhere if they're the best person?
Yes, on our side, yes. We start hiring, outside Quebec, so in Toronto, also in the US, but it depends of the department. So for the product engineering team, we still use our office with a maximum capacity of 25% in the office, but squad by squad, they are coming at the office and work together. We really think that brings, the team spirit. But for the sales and marketing and customer success department, we are anywhere, in America, I will say, in the US or in Canada. And we also start hiring in the UK for sales, to have salespeople, but, locally. But the barrier is not, region's not anymore a barrier for us. So when we just want to hire the best people and that fit in our culture.
Yeah. Does anyone have a disagreement? Some people, have a disagreement. Anybody else have any ideas on hiring in this?
It depends. So we're having a hardware company. So especially if you want to hire an electrical engineer or mechanical engineer that wants to build the stuff, you need to have it in person. So this is for us is a requirement. But if you don't need to be in person, it's okay. And especially most of the time, the departments that are easier to have remotely is sales and marketing and customer support as well. But when you come into engineering, sometimes like I really like the 2 pizza rule. So if your team is more than 2 pizza, then there's probably a problem. And then having this chance to chit chat recently is actually really important. But yes, it's totally doable, and CEOs and all the companies must do it as well to hire remotely. It's important.
Yeah, great. So it's hard enough to create a startup in a normal time. Certainly here, like Ben, have you seen COVID accelerate demand or slow down demand? Like how's that affecting not only hiring but just sort of business development and sales demand?
So in terms of business development, it's hard for us to say. We launched our service in March, I think 1 week before international borders shut down. And, we've been growing, and so at a good clip. And so, I'm very happy with what that looks like for us. In terms of business development from our customers, we've heard different things. So a lot of the more established places that, are better set up to kind of weather these storms say that they've actually seen quite a bounce back in the demand for flooring installations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone else? Adrian, you've seen. I think from all our LPs are sort of some of the largest global developers, managers, owners of real estate assets. Half of them they've seen acceleration. Half of them said I can't build, or projects are being delayed, or I can't finance things. So what are you seeing?
It's interesting. Like from a health and safety perspective, most of our clients are busier than ever. I mean, just by this is top of mind stuff now for people. But in terms of like their general business activity, like I'm actually very surprised at how quickly a lot of things have bounced back, or we're always running, especially in the US where the majority of our client base is. It's like it never really stopped, and for the most part. So I think that's kept us open-minded. I would say in some cases, some larger enterprises that we were about to serve paused things and wanted to see how this would ride out. But a lot of them are coming back to the table to discuss these things because digital transformation projects just got sped up. And if it was going to take 18 months before, they have to get it done in 3 months. And so that's been an interesting catalyst for us, and just seeing how people are responding to the industry. So on the whole, we're probably seeing the demand that we would have seen anyways. It's just been very volatile over the last 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, Jimmy, something there?
Yeah. So on our side, during the pandemic did not really affect us because we were fortunate enough to have a tool for virtual coordination and communication. So when people went back to home for work during the COVID-19, they were looking for a tool to have better coordination, better communication, because project has not stopped during COVID. People was just going back to home. So we were, I think, in the good position for this sadly time, I will say. But I cannot imagine a startup that just start, in last January and the pandemic happened, because meeting clients face to face is really important at the very beginning stage. On our side, we were big enough to have process and CRM in place and call our client and continue our growth and have this structure and position. But I cannot imagine, as I said, the startup that just start this year with all this pandemic, with iteration with the client and all that stuff. It should be really harder, yes.
Well, let the youngest company, William, why don't you talk to us about how a young startup navigates through this time? Did it accelerate? Did sales cycles get pushed out? How did it affect you?
Yeah, so actually, Jimmy, it's possible. So definitely, like we are not yet full throttle in our company in terms of sales. So we're finishing parts of the product and making sure that we can go full throttle afterwards. But for us, it was actually really good, to be honest, because we had a lot of traction from contractors. Our customers are mostly subcontractors or self-performing GCs. So they had, especially at the beginning, like in month of March or April, everybody was looking more online. And they've seen our product, and at the same time, we've launched our video, so we had a lot of traction coming in. So that was actually really good on our point, and especially now, like now, we can perform online video demonstration, and before we could not do that. Yeah. So this is something that we save a lot of time at the end. Yeah. So we can invite many contractors at the same video call. We perform a video demonstration. And then it's pretty self-explanatory about what the product can do. And at the end, we're saving a lot of time. So when we closed our first customer online, I was actually really happy. So we had customers before that, but the first one online, 100% digital. That was actually quite great. So it's possible. And so we do it more and more and more. So this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's sort of a good, segue. I've got a big enterprise sales background, and I've told you guys, where I've come at DocuSign and Constellation and others, and sort of long sales cycle and in person and flying all around the world and doing all that stuff. How's the sales cycle change when you have a tangible product? Like, do you have different tools? Do you have different, how has that changed for you as a company? Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe on our side, the sales cycle is longer today because of, information security is more important today for our client, for a large enterprise, because people are working from home. So they send us, questionnaire about information security, and the process is a bit longer. But so maybe we had like 30% in the length of a sales cycle on our side, but still we can close deal virtually. Yeah, so it's longer. And during the pandemic, we don't feel the effect on March and April and May, because there was a lead in our pipeline, and sales has begun, but we feel it in June and July because we didn't do the trade show and all that stuff. So our pipeline was smaller, but we iterate with our marketing and sales people, and now the pipeline is bigger. But so we need to iterate a lot with our team to make sure that we have enough lead in our sales pipeline to continue our growth.
Yeah. Ben, any insight there? How have you guys done it? You guys have this hockey stick growth. How's that happen?
Yeah, it's been kind of adapting. The early, March and April, of course, everyone was scared to leave the house, us included. And in that case, a lot of it was digital. So, our sales process is I think it's probably close to what a lot of people do, where you kind of have a discovery meeting, figure out what the pain points that you're going to sell them the medicine for are in the follow-up. And so that meeting was held online. In Vancouver, we're lucky that, it hasn't been so bad, so that we're still comfortable meeting people if we're in big open spaces and, 10 feet away. Yeah. So early days, was just pushing what you can online. Now it's not as much of a problem.
Yeah. Hey, Adrian, I had this go the other day. We run a bunch of networking events for our accelerator. We do all these other things, and I feel bad for 22-year-old people that are coming into the workforce and can't network, right? Like, networking is the thing that gets you, and business is about how are you getting around creating new relationships these days?
Within the company or with our customer community?
Both. Yeah. I mean, how do you create a net new relationship today? How does that work?
Well, inside the company, I think we've perfected our virtual beer cart. That's been fun. But no, seriously, I think that the hard thing with our community is that we were very used to going and flying wherever to go meet, Texas, Tennessee, Edmonton, and meet with our customers in small groups, sometimes at a restaurant or a small get together, sometimes at a trade show, but kind of off to the side. And so the industry, construction industry that we serve was very much, hey, let's get together in person, let's meet each other. And we embraced that from the beginning, which is a little unconventional for most software companies, where many of us were told from the early years, don't go in person, everything has to be completely digital. And so now it has been tougher. And even though our sales cycles have sped up and our sales process is more or less the same, we're not meeting the people in person. And so in the long run, I am a little concerned, because that does give us so much intel into just our customers' operating environments, physically actually going to a customer's site. There's no substitute for it. So I think for now, we're making do. We're asking more questions, trying to understand our customers and their environment more, and try to find creative ways of doing that to make sure we solve the right problems. But I'd be lying to you if I said I miss actually being on site, and our staff does too.
Yeah. So quick question. I mean, I think, we have almost 60 companies in our portfolio, right? They're all, and I remember March 13th, I was in Vegas and Tom Hanks and the NBA got canceled. I think that was the day, right? And so we get back to work, and I tell you that story because we went back to work with our portfolio companies. And, maybe some of your VCs came and says, how can I help? How much cash do you have? It was sort of this triage event of when you're a startup as to how much money do we have in the bank, right? So, right. That's we got to pay the bills, and how do we do that, right? So very interesting on sort of, just a question now that this is the new normal. What lesson did you learn? Some people had to let go staff, and some people had to change and pivot. Can I ask you each sort of what lesson did you learn over the past 7 months? William, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so definitely two important metrics is burn rate in one way. As you mentioned, this is actually quite important. But I've seen a lot of startups really changing their strategy out of fear, and this is not necessarily always the best way to go. So sometimes if you have a direction and something happens, sometimes you still have the best path to go, which is the one-way direction. So on our side, we decided not to change nothing, actually. So not to do any flip on our product, because that would be weird if we would change from having 1.5 years of research and development on the hardware product and totally changing it because of COVID. That would have not proven the problem that we're solving. So definitely we needed to adapt in different ways how we do the sales funnels and so on, but the core stays the same. So not acting out of fear and make sure that you have enough cash to go through tough journeys. This is actually really important. And when you have enough cash, then you can make right decision. When you panic, this is where mistake happens. So this is really important.
I agree, Adrian.
Yeah, I think those are really wise words, and I think one of the things I've learned was just that it really pushed me to even trust, just help the trust in your people, right? Because this is a time where there needs to be clear leadership and control over certain things, but at the same time, because of the way we're working for many of us has changed so much. We had to really be decentralized in many ways and let people make the right decisions and give them a lot of freedom. And in many ways, this is a test of all leaders, of all that goodwill that you've built up with your teams over the years. Hopefully, this is a test for is that real? Have you done that? And do people trust you? And do you trust them? It's a two-way street. So I think it was really a test in that regard too. And thankfully, on our team, our teams proved extremely resilient, and has taught me a lot along the way as well.
Yeah, Jimmy, what do you think?
Yeah. Totally agree with William and Adrian about that. What we learned is that build a strong culture before that time happened, because when it happened and you have a strong culture, people will go on, will work, but will understand the vision and will still stick to your vision and your leadership. And so I totally agree with William and Adrian. And because I saw a lot of startup having, ping pong table and all that stuff in the office, but this not bring, you need to care about the employee. And when this time happens, this is when you really stop if you care about your people before this happens. Because if you care before, he will care about you during that time. So trust and strong culture, it's really important.
Yeah, Ben, any insight as to lessons learned through 2020?
Yeah, I'll be another person to say that I think William nailed it. It's not, be prepared, have plans, have contingencies, but don't be reactionary.
Yeah.
There was so much advice that I got from people who are very smart, very experienced, very well-meaning, who were telling me in March and April, you gotta look at your head count, you gotta start cutting expenses, you gotta look at cutting these things, you gotta batten down the hatches. And and for many companies and many industries, they would have been right. But as it happens, for the construction industry, as I mentioned, that would have been the worst thing I could have done, right? I've had an immense success by not reacting immediately and instead, waiting and seeing it through.
Yeah. So this is an interesting question that came to the audience. I think it's very topical, but how do you get goodwill outside of the virtual beer cart? Is there anything specific you can help the virtual beer is great, and William, mailing beer is great. Not sure if it's legal, but is there anything in particular that you guys have done outside of that to build culture? And I'll open it up.
I mean, communication is important, before this hard time, but even today it's more important. We were thinking about hiring someone next year to internal communication, because people need to feel what is happening. And sometimes, yes, I'm sending an email to all the employee once a month, but they want more. They want to feel if the company is going well. What's about the sale? What about the product? So communication is really important, and I really think that we as a founder, we need to communicate a lot and more than we thought, because we have all this operational thing to do, but we need to talk with people, and so this is one of the advice we have. Yeah.
Anything else? Anybody else have anything to add there? But I think that's great. Like over communicate, and that's probably a lesson before.
Yeah.
It's like you communicate too much, it's communicate. You'll never win, Jimmy. I can tell you that. But anybody else have anything quickly to add there?
Probably I have something. So one of the things I think is really important to make employees proud about what they do, and what we do at Mechasys to enable that is once a month we have a tech share. So probably Ben, this is mostly from Hacks, the accelerator, but so once a month it's an employee that makes a presentation about 1 hour to all of the other employees, and he describes what he do, what is his project, and he goes into details, and sometimes it's actually really fun, and we finish that with a board game. So before we were doing it like in person, but now we fully do it virtually. So it's the same. So it's actually quite nice to because sometimes people in operation, like in accounting or marketing, don't know what the engineers do. So it's actually quite important to enable this communication between departments.
Yeah.
Great. I think that's awesome. We'll switch gears a little bit to sort of future focused. We look back a little bit. Let's look toward the future, right? One of these days we'll get to the next normal, as they're calling it. Does anyone see any particular sort of technology shifts or any shifts in sort of construction tech that are going to affect their business sort of positively or negatively?
I can go. I think we really underestimate the number of data we have during a construction project, and we don't use. I think the industry don't use all those data in the smart way right now. So I really think that AI and machine learning will bring new automation, new great automation to be more efficient on site, on design, for designing building, for build. So and this is a small department we have here. We invest in AI because there's so much data we can use to be more efficient on every project. So I really think that in the very near future, AI and machine learning will be a great shift to the industry. Yes.
Yeah. Does anyone have any applications of that, particularly in their business?
Yeah, I think certainly one angle that we've been selling is that by using our service, where we quickly go in and scan the site and then we deliver pre-cut material, is that you have fewer bodies on site for less time.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One other thing might be, just the advent of as 5G is rolled out, a lot of the stuff that many of these companies have been doing in the office and so on, it really liberates what can be done on the site too. It's interesting. It's like there's certain things that are done on site that don't need to be done on site anymore, to Ben's point. And then there's other things that we can empower the folks on the front lines of these sites too. And 5G, machine learning, and all these things just help us make better decisions on all this stuff. So it's an interesting kind of inversion that's probably going to be occurring over the next couple of years. But it's really hard to imagine what that looks like because we're so used to seeing these sites and these properties kind of operate the way they always have. So it will certainly challenge our imagination.
Yeah. William, any insight there?
Yeah. So I think, from 2010 to 2020, what we've seen mostly was the usage of tablets on construction sites. And now it's mostly part of the status quo. So if you don't have a tablet, you're not in the game. This is actually what is happening right now. And from 2020 to 2030, I think what's going to happen is really enabling the field workers to be more efficient. So we're going to see more. I see cobotics. So collaboration with robots from the humans. I don't think we will replace the humans entirely in this decade. I don't think it's the goal, but really collaboration with robots. I think this is really an interesting space. So enabling more productivity on site, and we should not forget that most of the one of the biggest portion of the industry is subcontractors as well, and subcontractors are not yet that much enabled to our technology. So I think that's one of the things that will change in this decade.
Yeah, well, we can't have robots all over the place, or else Adrian's gonna be out of business because he's gonna keep. Yeah, interesting. Ben, anything on that? Any technology you see that either enable your business to go faster, or offer a better product?
In terms of wide scale, technologies that we're not developing that make things go better. It's AR is becoming an exciting thing, and so with AR comes the requirement that you have to have a 3D scan of your environment, and you have to do that in real time. And right now, those technologies are nowhere near accurate enough for what we're doing, but I think we're going to be happy accidental winners from that going forward in the future.
Yeah. So audience, please feel free to put any of your questions in the Q&A for me. Just Adrian, what's the future of your business look like? What's the future look like over the next few years?
Yeah, it's kind of cool because what we've learned with all the data that we have from all the construction companies that are using our product, and there's hundreds, is we started to put together a little bit of that secret sauce and experiment with some of the machine learning out there to really recognize patterns, because we're moving from a world where a lot of things were decided in the 20th century based on laws, regulations, committees, this sort of stuff, and now we're starting to question, well, hey, what does this stuff actually work? What does the data actually tell us? When we don't come and look at something with a bias, we look at the data. What's the formula for safer work sites? What are the things around that? So that's the stuff that really interests me. That's how we're going to take safety to the next level and create zero injury workplaces in construction. So uncovering all that data is going to teach us is the exciting stuff that we're working on now. And then just getting in the hands of folks is easy because everyone uses mobile apps and tablets now. But it's that discovery process of finding out, well, what does this data really mean? And creating a user experience around it that drives a safer workforce. That's what we're excited about and working on.
Yeah, that's a tough goal to have perfection of zero workplace injuries. So it's yeah. That's a big, hairy, audacious goal, as they call it.
You'd be surprised how many are getting there, right? And so it just shows you how in 10 years how quickly things can change, and then another 10 years from now, that is a very real possibility in many companies.
Yeah, Jimmy or William, any future predictions for your companies?
Yeah, on our side, as I said, machine learning is not magical. It's just nice and great algorithm. So we will use that, and we start using that to automate the process of BIM coordination and to have a more efficient communication flow. You can create an issue, and then everything is filled out, all the parameter, and just to have more efficient BIM coordination on our side. And we very believe that at some point, all the process of coordinate your BIM model will be automated. It just concentrate yourself on designing the building, and when you leave the office, everything will be in the cloud, and we will detect everything and assign to the good people the issue and all that stuff. So this is where we go, to bring a more efficient BIM coordination workflow to the industry.
Cool. William?
Yeah, actually, I think the future is actually quite interesting. So what we do is we perform layouts on the project with laser projection. But what we've discovered is that layout is really important aspect of a construction project because it leads to all the other works that will be performed, which is schedules and mostly construction materials. So really where we intend to help our customers is to connect those construction materials to their layout, making sure that every time you move a pile of studs to your projects or gypsum panels, they're actually tailored cut to exactly what you need. And then we can help them minimizing waste and also minimizing as well their expenses on products that they need to cut on site. So this is something that we'll be well positioned for.
Sure. Great. Well, I know we're coming down to time a bit. So my question, and we have a lot of us sort of aspiring entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs in the audience. So go back to when you had that idea on a cocktail napkin, right? And a couple of drinks off the real beer cart. And so Ben, what would you tell yourself, and what advice would you give to aspiring folks out there?
What's that?
Besides, don't do it.
My advice actually is just the opposite. It's the Nike tagline of "Just do it." It's ideas are great. Validating by talking to people is great, but validating by building and trying to sell, I mean, there's nothing like that.
Yeah. Did you have in mind how much money it's going to take you to start this? Like, what did were you like, I'm just going to go?
No.
Yeah. Well, so, I had the advantage that, I have a background in physics and robotics. And so I didn't have to hire out expensive contractors for building my MVP. Yeah. So certainly the first steps were a lot easier, but then also having a technical background instead of a business background, and this being my first company, I thought to myself, okay, so if I have enough money to hire 4 of me, then the product will go 4 times faster and will be profitable in like 6 months. Don't worry about it.
So naivete is a good thing, I think, when you're starting out, right? So how about you, Jimmy?
Yeah, on the same way, so go get help and surround yourself by people that have been there before you. This is what we done in 2015, 2016. Go get mentor, coach, and just to avoid big mistake during your journey, your path to growth. So go get help. Go get a coach, or when you start a business, it's very important to avoid big mistake that can burn you down. So feel as an entrepreneur, sometimes you think you can do everything, but just go get help, and people will love to help you.
Yeah, I think just interesting, just sort of have the technical founder versus the business founder, and as to when you're the technical founder, you can go build it. When you're the business guy, you're like, oh, it's not that hard or expensive to build. Like you put a couple buttons here and a couple things here, and and so William, talk about your experience and what would you tell people?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is not the idea of the product that you build. The most important thing is actually the problem, and you need to deeply love the problem that you solve, because you're going to spend the next 5, 10, probably 15 years in this business. So if you don't like the people you talk to every day, then you won't be able to complete the journey. So it's really important that you love more the problems in the industry that you love than finding a product that you love. Yeah. And that's something which is really important. So the industry and the problem is definitely the most important.
Great, cool. Adrian, you want to bring us home?
Yeah, hey, I think all those words are bang on. And the one thing I reflect on is just, knowing what great looks like and how to get there. And I think one of the things, looking back on it, it's like, if I knew what great in this whatever area it is, if I knew what that looked like 5 or 6 years ago, I probably would have made some better decisions back then. So I think knowing what that great looks like and really taking the time to find that for whatever that part of your business is one area. And finally, have fun along the way, celebrate the milestones, no matter how silly or small they might seem. It really gives you energy to keep going, because the highs are high and the lows are low, but celebrating the milestones along the way is never time wasted.
Cool. And I'll give you my VC angle for all you startups out there. Just make sure that the problem that needs solving. Don't build something and looking for a problem. Make sure it's there, and then make sure it's a company and not a product, or that one of your competitors can just build because they have the capital to do it or not. Make sure you always pull the nose of the plane up and say, am I solving a large enough problem that this is going to be $1 billion idea one day? And if it's not, and it's a lifestyle business, and that's great, don't call me. But if you want a big idea with some VC funding, make sure you do that. So really appreciate you guys taking the time today. I learned a bunch. I know the audience did. Everyone be safe and be well, and good luck to you.
Yeah, thanks, Shawn.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.